An official welcome. We're so glad you all are here for our fourth session, looking at our public school options. I've personally had a lot of fun making these because there are just an amazing amount of options available, and it's pretty hard to get your head around it, but once you do, it's actually pretty exciting. So our goal for today is really to increase your awareness of all of your middle school options. We won't have a chance to go into all the details. You'll see there's far too many, but we do want to also kind of point to information that you're going to want to avoid as you go through the school selection process. And then most importantly, give you space where you can get more information on schools that interest you or information that we've covered, but not in depth so that you can learn more. All right, so we're going to spend some time. I'm going to give you just a little bit more info about RYSE in case you are not familiar with us, so you have a sense of what perspective you're getting today and can decide if it aligns with you or not. So RYSE is my company that I started because I was so tired of watching families be misled throughout the school choice process and also not be aware of all the options that are available. I've had many, for example, heritage Spanish speaking families say, oh, I wish we would have had a Spanish option. It's like, oh, we have Spanish options for all kids in Charlotte. And so I'm hoping that throughout this process and through RYSE's support, you really are able to take advantage of the option that's the best fit for your child and get access to the best information along the way, hopefully making it a bit less stressful as we go. You know, a lot of us start out as we go through the school selection process with some energy and excitement maybe about what's out there. We want to find a school that our kid loves and that loves our kid back and they're going to grow and thrive. But reality is very different than that actual expectation, right? Along the way, it gets very confusing. One, because we find ourselves just Googling and guessing what schools we're eligible for. There currently is only one place to get your complete list of public school options here in Charlotte, and it's the RYSE Explorer platform. I'll show you in a second because I just thought this was so wild that you couldn't get a complete list of options. The other thing that you may or may not know is you encounter a lot of very misleading information along the way. You know, folks see these ratings, they've heard vaguely they're misleading, but aren't always sure what to make of it. And so, for both of these reasons, for families missing out on great options and being misled, RYSE has created some resources for you all. We want you to have clarity about your options. So, this is part of that today in RYSE Insight Bites. And we also have our RYSE Explorer, which I will show you soon, that gives you your complete list of school options. And we want you to have confidence in accessing reliable information that is not going to mislead your family. So that is also a resource that you can access for that is RYSE Explorer. And we have our RYSE Live workshops. Actually, let me skip here a little bit and just give you a sense. One of the places we would love to see you is in our RYSE Live workshops. We have 2 more left for this year. This is where we cover things such as why does the recently announced #1 elementary school in all of North Carolina, why would I say it is failing its students? U.S. News and World Reports just gave this school its #1 rating in the entire state of North Carolina. And I would give you a strong word of caution if you were going to put your child there because of information that families are not being given. This is a great example of how they're being misled. So in this, we go through that information. We go through and look if CMS is a strong district or not. We specify what information is misleading by going through this story about Ava. We talk about her family's process. We find out that she's ultimately disappointed, and we identify what can specifically mislead you along the way. So I hope to see you there because I want you to have this info so these things don't happen to your family. Okay, and I will show you RYSE Explorer in a bit because I do want us to have plenty of time to talk specifically about our middle school options, but that one is there for you too. So first, as you all may know, we're in the middle of the magnet school choice process. So the CMS lottery is happening right now, and this only applies to magnets. This does not apply to charter schools or your zone school, but a couple of dates and key steps you need to keep in mind. One is if your child is not already enrolled in CMS, so if they're coming from an outside district or if they're enrolled in a charter school currently, you need to make sure that they're enrolled in CMS and have a CMS student ID by November 21st. This is required to participate in the lottery. Second, you want to use this time to learn more about your options. There are open houses ongoing now, and I can send you a link to where you can go tour and learn more about the different magnet programs we're going to talk about today. There's also RYSE Explorer that's here to give you more information about your options. And ultimately, your big deadline is December 5th. That's when you're going to submit your lottery options. In the lottery, virtually all families will submit 3 options for their child. There's some rare cases in which you might find if you're zoned for a middle school that's kind of chronically low performing, you might actually have 6 options, but you'll see that in the portal if that's true for you. Typically it's 3. And our strong recommendation is to put your first choice first. The reason for that is a couple of things. One, you'll have the best chance of getting in. 2, you're only going to be waitlisted at your first choice if you don't get in. So either you'll get into your first option or you'll be put on the wait list for that school. You won't be put on a wait list for any of your other school options. So then you can put your second and third choice, and you could, for example, get into your first option. You could be waitlisted on your first option and be admitted to your second or third, but you want to make sure you've got your preferred school in the number one slot. All right, if you have any questions, write them down. We can definitely talk about them toward the end. Now I'm going to go to the bulk of our time together today, which is looking at all of our middle school options that are available. So you may know there are three types of public schools. There are traditional neighborhood or zoned schools. That's the one middle that you're assigned to, and you can always go to that school. There's also magnet schools and charter schools. If you want to know more about what is different between these and how you should ask different questions for different school types, you can watch the first RYSE Insight Bite session that we did. The link to this recording will be in your follow-up email that you'll get today. Okay, so for your traditional neighborhood schools, the way you can get that information in two places. One is by going to this MECGeo portal, which is run by the county, and it will specify which zone schools you're eligible for. The other one is by going to RYSE Explorer. If that's easier for you, you can, I'm actually going to sign in just to show you. This will give you all of your school options, so charter, traditional, and specifically your zone schools. And I'll show you what it looks like. You can put in your home address and get your custom list. So I have 122 public school options available for my family with my home address. You probably have a similarly large number of schools available, but this is where you can see them all. And you can go in and click so that it just shows your zone schools. And that will show you, for example, my family's zoned for West Charlotte, Bruns, and Ranson Middle. So that's your other option of where to get this information. All right. A couple of things to know about your traditional middle school option is a lot of the interesting programming we're going to be talking about today may be available for you at your zone school. There are really interesting new programs that CMS is putting into their neighborhood schools because they see there's demand for them in the magnet space. So you don't want to rule out the fact that you might have an IB program in your neighborhood middle school, or you might have a Cambridge program, which I'll talk more about in your middle school program, or they might even do language immersion, and it is not a part of the famous language immersions that we hear about maybe in the magnet program. So keep that in mind. The other thing I want you to keep in mind about your traditional neighborhood school is if you find that it's your zone school, but some kids can choose to be in the school, they can lottery in, that is what we call a partial magnet. So some kids come from the neighborhood and some kids lottery in. If that is true for your neighborhood school, you want to ask the school if there are any advantages to you, even though you're already zoned for it, choosing it in the lottery. Some schools, for example, give you the benefit of having like kind of priority access to a high school afterwards, for example. So if you're in a partial magnet, make sure you just ask that question. Okay, now let's turn, actually, let's do our charter schools and we'll come back to our magnet school options. So our charter school options are operating on a totally different set of lottery timelines and processes. They're unique to every single school, which can be rather tiresome. So for most of them, their deadline is not December 5th, but to find out what it exactly is, you'll need to go to the website. And we're going to take some time now to just give you an overview of what the charter school options are that are out there. So if you hear of a school or a school type that interests you, this would be a great time to jot it down, and then you can go to their website to learn more. And so I've got the charter schools here and I've got them kind of grouped into kind of similarities. Obviously, this is not an exact science. There could be a charter that's I say is college going, but it also has language immersion and other things, but it's just to give you a general sense. And all of these are available in the RYSE Explorer. If you are like, oh, I want to see that list again, I want to look into them more, that would be a place you could access these. It's, as far as I know, the only real user-friendly way to do it other than just Googling charters in Mecklenburg County and finding newspaper articles, which is what I used to do. So hopefully you all have that better resource available. Okay, so the first big group of charter schools are charter schools that emphasize college going or college readiness as one big part of their program. So this includes schools like Corvian Community School, Bradford Prep, Lake Norman Charter, Socrates Academy, Jackson Day School, the Math and Science Academy of Charlotte, Sugar Creek Charter, the American Leadership Academy or ALA Charlotte, Queens Grant Community School, Matthews Charter Academy. There's a few more I'll show you in a second. You can see they also often have a focus on character education, which is what it's often called in the charter and private sector, but is often called social emotional learning in the magnet sector. So if you see those, they are often overlapping. They're going to be reinforcing similar characteristics. typically. They're going to vary from depending on which specific school. There are other schools in here that also have a focus, for example, like Sugar Creek Charter on eradicating generational poverty. So that's a school that's going to provide more wraparound supports and really focus on doing a lot of extra supporting to make sure all kids are getting into college, for example. I'm going to talk about the Greek immersion in just a moment. And there's a lot of schools that have really emphasized their focus on the whole child as well. So those are some pieces you can keep your eyes open for. These are more of the college-going charters, so Lakeside Charter Academy, Steel Creek Prep Academy, Freedom Middle School, which is a part of the Movement School group of schools, KIPP Academy of Charlotte, United Community School, and Charlotte Secondary School are all really focused on that move towards college. Schools that I've kind of put in this category of whole child are Charlotte Lab School, which is focused on project-based learning and also has some immersion opportunities in Spanish and Mandarin. Pioneer Springs Community School is a nature-based school. A lot of families don't know about this, but kids spend 80% of the day outdoors, kind of rain or shine. So really interesting model there. And then the Community School of Davidson has a real focus on like character education and community approach to their learning. We also have some that are very explicitly focused on STEM or STEAM, and STEM and STEAM stand for science, technology, engineering. If it's STEAM, it has the A, which is arts and mathematics. So even the schools that aren't listed here, many incorporate aspects of STEAM or STEM, so you can ask about that if you're interested. But Mallard Creek STEM Academy and Southwest Charlotte STEM Academy really put those as key focuses in their schools. We have two schools that are specifically focused on supporting advanced learners. There is Metrolina Regional Scholars Academy. This school has a testing entrance requirement. So if you are interested in this school, you need to learn quickly about their admissions requirements for testing into the school. They do have group testing. You can also submit private testing. And then there is Telra Institute, and it is a personalized learning approach for advanced learners. They don't, as I understand it, require testing to be admitted, but you can actually test to have your child placed at a specific level in their personalized curriculum. And one thing that is pretty interesting about this school is that students can move forward faster. So they could be a grade level ahead in this personalized learning. I think a lot of it's done online in addition to being in the class as well. So those are interesting. If you're interested in advanced learning opportunities, I really, really encourage you to come to our RYSE Bite session next week, because I'm going to tell you then how these two schools fit a very common pattern that can mislead families. So I really want to plug, if you're interested in those two schools, either reach out to me separately or come to the session next week, because those schools in particular reflect a broader pattern that often trips families up, and I really want you to be informed about it. We're also going to give you an overview of all the advanced options in CMS, which are many, and has been fascinating to learn about. So I'd love to see you there. And then there are some classical education focused schools with middle grades, which is the Bonnie Cone Leadership Academy and Unity Classical Charter School as well. Okay. That is the kind of overview of the charter schools. I know that's probably a lot, but hopefully at least makes you aware of what's out there. One thing I want to mention now that is going to hold true for every single school type is schools, when you're considering schools for your children, you want to be evaluating both the programming that they aspire to, the programming they're working towards, STEM, advanced learners, etc. But you want to consider that separately from their effectiveness in actually delivering that program. So I see often schools that say we serve advanced learners, but we forget to ask the question of how well do you serve advanced learners? And that information can often be surprising, or we do STEM. But if the school overall is not effective, it doesn't have a great school leader, strong educators, etc., you are likely to not find that the STEM is all that enriching if your child doesn't have a good experience at the school overall. So do keep that in mind as you go through your school process. Okay, so now let's look at our magnet schools. And I actually am going to click back a couple of slides. Magnet schools are organized in what we call transportation zones. You probably are already familiar with this, but just as an FYI, if you're not, you can get your transportation zone by going to the MEC portal, or you can kind of eyeball it based on this map. You're either in the violet, green, or blue transportation zone. And going to a school that is in your transportation zone gives you two things. One, access to bus transportation to that school, and two, priority in accessing that school in the lottery. So you get like a little bump in accessing that if it's a competitive school, other people are trying to get in. I do want you to know, though, that actually all of the magnet programs you're open and able to attend all of the magnet schools across the county. If it's outside your transportation zone, you'll just be responsible for getting your child to that school. And you'll have a slightly less, you won't have that kind of additional bump in accessing them via the lottery. All right, so let's go back here to full screen. The magnet schools are schools that have unique programming that you can opt in to be a part of. These are schools that you have to be a part of the lottery to participate in these schools. So important to keep that in mind. So here's an overview of the magnet programs that are available in the middle grades. We have the STEM or STEAM, again, science, technology, engineering, arts, and math focus. We have language immersion, but we also have world languages, and I will tell you what is different between those two. There are also visual performing arts opportunities, Montessori programming, and IB opportunities, which stands for International Baccalaureate. We'll talk more about that. And virtual learning, as well as what we call Cambridge international learning opportunities as well. All right, let me now, one thing I want to give you a sense of, so as you're thinking about middle, you might already be looking toward high school a bit. And so I want to show you for a moment that all of these magnet themes continue through high school. So it may be the case that your child loves their STEAM programming or STEM from elementary and you want to put them in another STEAM STEM school for middle and then on through high school. Philip O'Berry has some incredible programming. Harding has some STEAM STEM programming, etc. Hawthorne has some incredible STEAM STEM programming. You can just kind of get a sense of, you could continue on with these. You can also change when it comes to the high school level. There are also additional magnet options that open up when you get to the high school level, including a digital marketing focus, which, by the way, I would have loved to have had personally, would be amazing. There's a law and social justice program at Harding right now that's really interesting, where students are taking constitutional law and at the college level in high school. There are also these really amazing early middle colleges where students can leave with an associate's degree that is completely free down to the books or paid for absolutely everything. So those are really amazing. And you can watch my video on high school options if you want to get more information about those even now. And then there are some kind of specific career paths that kids may be interested in, which is culinary arts, cosmetology, and automotive technology as well. So that's just to give you a glimpse of what's coming in the high school grades. But now let's take a minute to go through each of these pathways and see what's available to you here. So in the STEAM STEM pathway, I kind of outline again here what it stands for. These schools are going to be focused on developing students' inquiry, logical reasoning, collaboration, and investigation, in addition to, exploring specific topics. And in the STEM STEAM space, we have a couple of, we can have general STEAM schools, or we also have computer science STEAM schools. You can see it's noted here, and also environmental sustainability focused schools. So you can see if you live in the violet transportation zone, these are all of your STEAM options. If you're in the blue transportation zone, you have these options available to you. In the green, you have the list that you can see here. As a reminder, you can technically apply to any of these schools. If they're outside your transportation zone, you'd just be on the hook for transportation. Something I strongly recommend is that you ask the school how developed is their program. Some schools may just be starting to add this magnet option to their school or add this programming option, in which case you really want to get a sense of, do they have interesting like robotics associated or interesting partnerships? How's this really going to impact your students day to day if that's something that's really of interest to you? Okay. We also have in middle school the virtual learning options open up quite a bit. So starting in grade 6, students can access the Charlotte Mecklenburg Virtual School, and that's available to families all across the district. If students decide to enter later in high school, they'll have to go through a transcript review to make sure that they meet the qualifications. Students in this school take classes 100% online from their home or from another location. And they do offer some co-curricular activity, or they offer co-curricular opportunities and sports through the child's homeschool. So if you're zoned for West Charlotte, for example, your child could play football or be in the band at West Charlotte while attending school in the virtual program. I will say, I'm sure this is a very mixed bag set of experiences, but I ran into a 10th grader the other day who was in an entrepreneurship experience that I was in, and he's doing the virtual learning program. And he said he finishes his schoolwork in 2 hours and then he goes and does internships and his own individualized learning, which I thought was genius. So, good for him, this is available. There are also 2 statewide virtual charter schools that actually start in kindergarten, which I think we could all have some questions about that given our experience through COVID, but there is North Carolina Cyber Academy and North Carolina Virtual Academy, and any student in North Carolina can enroll in those programs as well. All right. Okay, then we have our language immersion and world language programs. So this is where those two types of language programs overlap. So, language immersion speaks to an experience a child is having where they are learning both the language, the target language, and other content in a different language. So, for example, in a Spanish immersion program, students are learning math, but in Spanish sometimes, or learning science, but in Spanish. So they're experiencing the language both in the language class where they learn Spanish, but also in their other courses as well. My kids go to Oakland Language Academy and they spend half of their day in Spanish and half of their day in English. And it kind of varies from year to year, whether math is in English or Spanish or science is in English to Spanish, but they're getting half of the day in one language and half in the other. That's an immersion experience. In the middle grades, we start having access to the world language option. And this is more of what I was familiar with in high school, for example, where you could just take a class in a particular language. What you may not know about this option at the middle grades is that, well, let me go through the school types and I'll tell you what we have. So we have 5 different languages that students can choose from. So there's Spanish, and for Spanish, we have 3 different schools: Oakland Language Academy, Collinswood Language Academy, and Charlotte East Language Academy. And then we have Chinese, French, German, and Japanese. And if you're in violet, then you're zoned for the North Academy of World Languages. If you're in green or blue, you're at SAIL or South Academy of International Languages. And then if you're interested in Japanese, you have transportation access all across the district to the SAIL program. South Academy of International Languages is for Japanese, and all students in CMS have that option available to them. Something that you may not know is that the North Academy of World Languages and South Academy of World Languages that offer Chinese, French, German, and Japanese also have a world languages option starting in middle school. So even if your child has not been in an immersion program, they could attend SAIL or NAL and start learning another language. So this would be in a world language approach, meaning they're taking that class in that language. They tend to be a bit more accelerated and immersive than you might think of some high schools where the teacher isn't necessarily speaking the target language the whole time. They're going to, I would say, be a stronger overall language experience. And they're trying to help these students gain a lot of language ability in just a few short years in the middle grades. And if your child makes really good progress, they can actually be eligible for for skipping some of the high school world language courses in the same way that if your child attends one of the immersion programs, they're eligible to skip some of those earlier language classes in high school. So something to be aware of. I don't think a lot of people know that. Like, people feel like, yeah, I missed the immersion thing. I don't have an opportunity to learn it. And that's not the case with regards to the languages that are offered at North Academy of World Languages and South Academy of International Languages. So if you have questions, jot them down and we'll come back. We also have visual and performing arts schools at the middle grade. And these are schools that are using the arts to build collaboration, creativity, and really infuse it throughout their curriculum. They also get specific instruction in the 4 arts disciplines, as they call it, the dance, music, theater arts, and visual arts. And the schools that are offering this are First Word Creative Arts Middle is available to any family across the district with transportation. And then in the green zone, Crestdale Middle also has a visual and performing arts program. And as we look towards high school, these schools would be feeding into the Northwest School of the Arts, which has a pretty, renowned arts program available to them. There's an audition process for Northwest School of the Arts at the high school level. And so these schools would be kind of available to support your child in developing a portfolio or preparing for auditions, et cetera, for that process. All right, we also have a middle and high school Montessori program. So this is where the principles of Montessori are adapted for the middle grades, and then your child is actually eligible to continue into the upper grades. And what this often looks like is a lot of project-based learning that are around particular themes. In some instances, that could be customized to your child's interest. In some instances, the themes and the topics will be focused on whatever the school is exploring at that time. The school is for the middle and high school grade is J.T. Williams Montessori. And one thing to keep in mind with J.T. Williams is they're going to be relocating, I believe, next year to the Marie G. Davis building. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Thanks to you. So I love a good head nod. So if you're interested in J.T. Williams, consider the impact of the location shift for your family. But I know a lot of people love this option, and it's pretty unique to have a middle grades Montessori option, and even more unique to have a high school grade middle option. All right. So we also have the International Baccalaureate program that starts in the middle grades. This is one of the advanced programs, which as I mentioned, I'll go into more detail about in our session. Oh, the only one in the state, Dia. So thank you. The only Montessori. Yeah. At one time, I would say about 5 years ago, there were only 5 Montessori high schools that were public in the US. I'm sure there are more now, but it's a pretty unique offering. And at the high school level, I can give you a little preview on the Montessori side. They start to have Jan terms, or I'm forgetting what exactly what, they call them right now, but these 1 to 2 week classes where they go really deep into exploring and learning through a particular topic, which can involve them traveling or can involve them just being out in the real world working on something. They do that each semester, and the middle school kind of starts moving towards that. So I would expect more of that, like real hands-on, applied to the real world type learning. Okay, so the IB program, so this is one of the three big advanced program options that are offered in the middle grades. If your child has been in any of the talent development, which is what CMS calls the gifted or advanced learning pathway that they run typically from grades 2 to 5, that pull out one-on-one support will not be the same in middle school, and your advanced learning options will primarily be in the form of the advanced programming like International Baccalaureate. This is one of those options. We'll talk about Cambridge as another one in a moment. So, International Baccalaureate, especially in the younger grades, tends to really be focused on inquiry-based learning, so supporting students in discovering knowledge rather than giving them knowledge to kind of ingest or, engage with. So a lot of focus on collaborative, hands-on learning. They emphasize not only the content students are learning, but also their academic abilities to manage their own learning, to take charge of their study schedules, those sorts of things. There's a big focus on international understanding and also service to society. At the high school level, there is a community service requirement. I'm not recalling offhand if that is also the case in the middle, but in the middle grades is when you can start taking some of the honors and advanced courses that are available. So if you are interested in the IB program in high school, you can look into and see if would be of interest to you in the middle grades as well. You can see we have a number of options here. Again, I strongly recommend you look up these schools in RYSE Explorer because they are schools where the high test scores of some of the students can kind of mask whether or not students are moving forward or falling behind academically. And that is some of the information that can mislead families. So I strongly encourage you to look up any of these schools if you're interested in them in the RYSE Explorer. All right, and then we have the Cambridge program. So the Cambridge program comes from Cambridge University in the UK. It is similar to the IB program in a couple of ways. One is that it really has an international focus, and two, it's preparing students for college level or advanced level work. In high school, they'll have a chance to take classes they can earn credit for and also get, I believe, also get a diploma. Yeah, Cambridge also gives a diploma, so does the International Baccalaureate program. In the middle grades, Cambridge offers honors options available for your children. So that could be in math, science, and English. The only magnet program that we have right now for Cambridge is Eastway Middle. That said, this is one of those magnet type programs that they've embedded in many of the neighborhood schools. So if you're zoned for Francis Bailey Middle School, Mountain Island Lake Academy, Coolwood STEM Academy, or Mint Hill Middle School, you should learn more about the Cambridge programming that exists for students who are zoned for that school. It's unclear based on the information online. I haven't had a chance to clarify with CMS if you can opt into Eastway Middle if you're outside of the green zone. So if that's of interest to you, follow up with me or you can reach out to the school directly and ask. Okay, so that is your overview of all of your middle magnet options, your charter options, and you have your traditional zoned options as well. So I want to give you a preview of a few resources you have available to support you, and then we'll open it up for questions. So one thing is I'll send around to you all in your follow-up email a set of suggested questions, and this reflects some of the content from the first RYSE Insight Bites that tells you that you need to ask different questions for charter schools, for example, and you need to consider different questions if you're looking at private schools or other options. So I recommend you take a look at this as one resource. The other is the RYSE Live workshops that I mentioned. The next two, we have two more coming up on the 21st and the December 4th, I believe. Those are our last two for the year. So would love to see you there. It's very different content than what you've gotten today. So if you've come here today, you haven't gotten the information about what can mislead you. And I'm, like I said, really passionate about families getting that info. There's also the RYSE Explorer. So you can sign up for free on the website by just putting your email in, and you can look up some of the schools that I mentioned. And you can also then upgrade to get access to the My List. So that's where you put in your home address. And you're going to see the information that research suggests is the most meaningful indicator of overall school effectiveness. And you'll learn more about that either in this, you can hover, you can access some videos we have, and also in the RYSE Live session. And just a couple more slides till we get your great questions. You also have access to any one-on-one support. So if any time you would like to sit down and go through your specific options and answer any specific questions for your family, we're available for that. And then there are two more Rise Insight Bites, as I mentioned, for next week. All of the ones that have already happened are recorded, so you will get access to all of those in your follow-up email today. And then next week, we're looking at strong schools for students with special needs and schools for advanced or gifted learners, which I've already referenced here. With that, I will say thank you so much for your time. You've got my email. You're welcome to reach out. And so glad you all are here today.